Twilight smiled as she sat at her desk, a blank scroll resting in the moonlight from the window. It was late, and every pony else was asleep. Cadence had let Shiny Armor back into the room. He was sleeping on the floor, but that was more because he wanted to give Cadence the whole bed until she felt better. Her parents were in their room. Her friends were off at the castle. They and their families had been given sweets by the princesses. That way her family wasn't trying to cram another dozen ponies into their home. Finally, Nyx and Spike were nosing behind her. No! They had drifted off within minutes of being tucked into bed. Still, after everything that had happened, Twilight found herself feeling the need for a report. So, she sat at her desk. She had a fresh scroll, a fresh bottle of ink, a quill, an extra quill, spare paper in case the ink splattered, and a few other necessities. She dipped the quill into the ink and then gingerly placed it against the scroll. Dear Princess Celestia, this heartwarming I learned. A tapping on the window drew Twilight from her friendship report. There, she saw a familiar and surprising sight. Philomena was fluttering just outside the window. Her bright feathers a stark contrast against the black, star-speckled sky and snow-covered ground. Twilight quickly opened the window, letting Philomena flutter in before she shut the window, locking out the cool night air. What are you doing here? Twilight couldn't help but ask, and she quickly got her answer. Philomena opened one of her claws and dropped a pair of scrolls she was carrying. One was marked with Celestia's seal. The other one bore the seal of Celestia School for Gifted Unicorns. Philomena nudged the scroll with Celestia's personal seal with her beak, and Twilight quietly took the hint. She opened the scroll first, quickly reading over the small note contained within. Dear Twilight, I was asked by an old friend to forward this scroll to you. I hope you don't mind that I used Philomena instead of Spike. I can only imagine the little dragon is already asleep, and I didn't want to wake him. I also didn't see any harm in letting Philomena spread her wings. Happy heartwarming. Sincerely, Princess Celestia. P.S. When you think Fluttershy, please tell her I thank her for her suggestion. It was a surprisingly pleasant evening, and the circus was very good. Circus? What circus? There aren't any circuses in Canterlot this time of year. Twilight whispered to herself. She looked at Philomena, as if hoping the phoenix might give her some answer. She, however, just nudged the next scroll closer to Twilight. Twilight didn't know who this second scroll was from, mostly because she didn't know who Celestia considered a friend. She, however, wasn't going to be rude. It quickly began to read the noticeably larger message on the second scroll.
Dear Twilight Sparkle, it's been many years since I've written a letter like this, reporting to some pony what I've learned. Back when I used to write Celestia regularly, when I was just a little older than you all, they would always call me about my work, my talent for creating new spells, and back then hardly a week would go by that I hadn't thought up some new theory or come up with what I felt was groundbreaking technique in the mystical arts. Still, I guess the pony is never too old to learn, and today I learned a new lesson. Sometimes ponies make mistakes. Sometimes you spill a glass of milk. Sometimes you stumble and drop something because you weren't looking where you were going. And sometimes you aren't as cautious as you should be when dealing with strange, dangerous, magical material. Yes, I made a big mistake, and for the past several months I was sure that it was a mistake that I couldn't fix. And I was right to a degree. There's nothing I can do to put things back the way they were. There's no way to undo what's been done. But that's not why I can't fix it. I can't fix what's not broken. When Nyx arrived at my manor, we spoke. She asked about the spell, what your blood did in the ritual. She was hoping that it would make you, in some way, her biological mother. Unfortunately, that is not how the spell was designed, but I'll touch that on later. What I'd like to say first is that Nyx struck a nerve, and I ended up saying something to her. I told her how I wished none of it had happened, that I had never made the spell that created her, that I had never even been given the threads of Nightmare Moon. I wished that she would just go away. It was from Nyx's reaction to my words that I realized what I was really wishing for. Yes, I made a mistake, one that could have doomed all of Equestria to eternal night. But somehow, things still worked out right. Truthfully, things really worked out for the best. Equestria was no worse for the wear when the princesses returned to the throne. And Nyx has been given a chance to leave a life free of the anger and hatred that defined her as Nightmare Moon. So I apologize to both you and Nyx for anything I may have said to upset her. I have not been myself lately, but I believe the commotion at my manor that evening has helped me get back on track. I must also apologize for upsetting and possibly confusing Nyx with my explanation of the spell that created her. I wish for her to know the truth in the purest form, and I hope I will have a better luck articulating myself with a pen than I was with my own mouth. Despite her wishes, Nyx is not related to you by blood. The spell was designed to work in stages. The first was to create a body to house everything that was Nightmare Moon. This is where your blood came into play. It was a transfusion, like the one that would be given to a sick pony in a hospital. Your warm, living blood was a spark that helped ignite the heart that was forming inside what would become Nyx's body. That was, of course, when Princess Celestia interrupted. If the spell had continued on its regular course, it would have worked until Nightmare Moon's body was complete. The spell would have then formed Nightmare Moon's mind by stitching together the echoes of her memories and emotions that lingered in the shreds of her old body. After that spell would have focused on her soul. No pony could create a soul from scratch, but one can be grown. There are only a few tiny scrapings of Selena's spirit left in the shreds, fragments from the part of her soul where her jealousy first took root. I designed those spells to use those pieces as seeds. The mind that the spell are already assembled would act as a trellis, guiding the growing soul just as our own souls grow and change with the experience and life we face. To speak truthfully, the spell was very closely based upon existing research in the growth and development of foals. But as we both know, things did not go as planned. The spell was interrupted, and so I can only guess at what had happened after that. From what I know, this is what I believe. This part of the spell dealing with Nyx's body was able to complete without issue. She is, physically, Nightmare Moon. The part of the spell dealing with her mind, however, completely failed. At the moment of her birth, Nyx had few, if any, of her own memories. Even with her general knowledge was broken to pieces. She was a blank state. Like a true newborn, she was almost entirely ignorant to the world around her. As to her soul, it was left to grow naturally. With no mind, no memories to act as a trellis, it was free to take whatever shape it wanted. Thus, I believe, is why Nyx shares some traits with you, like your love of books and your curiosity. She imprinted upon you, like any child would imprint on a mother, and her soul looked to yours as a role model. Looking back, I don't think I had a hope of turning Nyx into a true Nightmare Moon after she spent even a week with you. Still, I ask that you assure Nyx she has no reason to be sad. You may not be her biological mother, but you are her true mother nonetheless, and she should be proud, I think. Every part of her came from Nightmare Moon, mind, body, and soul. She was Nightmare Moon when she was born, yet, with a little luck and a love from you, she had grown into something so much more. So in the end, I guess the lesson that I learned is that sometimes mistakes can lead to amazing things, things that you wouldn't have ever imagined otherwise possible. I wish you, Nyx, and your family a happy housewarming and a bright new year. Sincerely, the returning headmaster of Celestial School for Gifted Unicorns, Spell Nexus.
Twilight smiled a little as her eyes rose from the scroll. She let it rest on top of her desk, where she would be able to unforgive it the following morning. She then gave Philomena a scratch beneath the beak, before letting the phoenix fly out the window and back into the direction of the castle. After watching Philomena until she disappeared from sight, Twilight stepped away from the window and her desk. She crossed the room to her old bed. She slipped in as quietly as possible, not wanting to disturb Nyx, who was sleeping on the opposite of Spike. It was passed out on the foot of the bed. She laid her head down slowly, eyes drooping, but a smile still lingering on her face. The road had been bumpy, and maybe once or twice she was worried that bringing up Nyx to meet her family had been a mistake. But in the end, it all worked out for the best. Nyx was happy, her family was happy. Cadence was having a fall. All in all, it had been a pretty good heartswarming. Beginning to doze off, Twilight let her eyes shut. She listened to only the quiet of the room. She heard Spike and Nyx breathing, but also another sound. A sound that was like a lullaby, carrying her off to a land of pleasant dreams. And if you look in the shadow, you can see Twilight having wings. It was the bells of Canterlot Tower. For one final night, the glorious bells sang out with all their strength. The large bells rang like thunder. The small bells chimed like whispers, but together they formed the grandest chorus as they proudly played the carols of heartswarming. They sang out for all of Canterlot, for all of Equestria, letting all know that the fire of friendship burned brightly in the kingdom of ponies, that the three tribes were still in unison, and that the magic of friendship and family was alive and well. The fire of friendship lives in our hearts. As long as it burns, we cannot drift apart. Though quarrels arise, the numbers are few. Laughter and singing will see us through. We are a circle of pony friends. A circle of friends will be to the very end.